Welcome to The Blocks, the greatest show on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs from all walks of life live together while going through a formal startup accelerator. Their stages of business range between pre-launch all the way to people already earning millions of dollars a year. Competing in a series of workshops, one-on-one consults, pitches, and exercises to determine who is the greatest startup entrepreneur on the blocks. Moderated, judged, and mentored by world-class coaches who will be ranked from first to last.
You have single-handedly raised the bar across all levels. So thank you.
It's mathematics, and yes, hear me out.
Hey, everybody. Our guest today is Topless Romantic. She's an adult entertainment activist as well as an exotic performer. Welcome to our show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes,
We're excited to talk to you today.
Yes, thank you for joining and making time. I know that you're in San Diego, which is a little bit, it's basically the other side of the United States. I know most people are geographically, now I can't say it, geographically equipped to know where that is, but maybe not. So we have so many questions for you, and we're so interested in who you are and what it is that you do. And let's just dive right in. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
So I am from San Diego. I'm 31. I have been an exotic dancer stripper for almost a decade now. I've danced here in San Diego, mostly my home club, and I've done a little dancing in Vegas and in London. Performing is one of my biggest passions, so I hope that I will always be doing that in some way. And I also started a couple years ago a sex work activism brand with some apparel and art events in the community to kind of show people a little bit more about who we are in the sex work industry and how versatile and talented we are.
I love that.
And so that's something I've been working on. I've had to take a bit of a break because I had a baby and I was moving around a bunch. But now, I guess now it's halfway through the year. Now I'm really trying to refocus on that and really get some stuff out into my community here in San Diego.
So why don't you tell us what the name of your apparel brand is, and maybe some of the things that are put on your t-shirt, just so people can understand sort of what it is that you do. Love to hear that part.
Sure. So my brand is called Hard Lovin'. It kind of came to me. I heard a song that was written by another sex worker, and her song was called "I'm So Damn Sick of Being Soft," and something about that really resonated with me.
Okay.
You know, being in the club and having some customers, I would overhear them saying it didn't like the way another dancer was maybe a little rude to them or shut them down really quickly. And it's also kind of, I think, how society expects us to be really soft and quiet. And so it kind of really came to me and, you know what I want to talk about my industry. I want to talk about my experience, and I don't want to be soft and have to do it in a specific way. I want it to be hard, but at the same time, I don't want it to come off as aggressive because that's not who I am. And I think I can carry a more effective conversation if it comes from a more loving way instead of an aggressive way.
Right.
So that's kind of where Hard Lovin' came from. And I got inspired with the t-shirt stuff kind of through conversations I would hear in the locker rooms. You know, when it's just like any other job. When you go into a locker room, if you work at Nordstrom's or you work wherever, you go in the back and you kind of talk shit about your customers,
right?
Or whatever experience you just had. And so there are so many things I would hear. Like one of my shirts says, like, I make more money than you. And I just remember how many times have we said that in the back. We're like, this guy was being so condescending to me when I make more money than you, Paul. Like, kind of little funny things. And a scenario that happens often is sometimes when girlfriends come into the club and they get very territorial with their man or whatever it is. And one of my shirts says like, sex workers are just sexy entrepreneurs. Like, we're just here to do a job.
Right.
We're not here trying to steal your man.
Yes. And I
So
think that's probably like a common misconception, right? Some of these things, like you're trying to break down, like you were saying off screen when we were talking to you before, that you want to like end some of the stereotypes, or at least help people break down that barrier of understanding that you are just as much a human being
And
as
a normal
anyone else.
person.
Yeah.
Just a normal
exactly.
person.
Yeah, I think the more I've kind of spent thinking about my brand and stuff, the word humanizing has become really big for me, and humanizing our experience and humanizing us because we're humans
Right.
and deserve respect. So that's a really huge thing for me with my brand.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I know that you grew up Mormon. Can you tell us a little bit about how hard it was to go from being in the Mormon church into an adult entertainer?
Yeah, I did. I grew up very Mormon. My parents are still very Mormon as well. I'm now back living into my hometown full of all the Mormon families I grew up in. My experience, and I think a bit of my character, I haven't had to or experience any like direct discrimination because of what I do. I've been very loud and vocal about what I do, like on social media and stuff. That's just kind of been I've been able to do that.
Hmm.
So when I decided to leave the church when I was 18 years old, it was, I mean, I've always been who I am. I've always been very attracted to stripping. Since I was really young, I would pretend, I'd pretend being sick to stay home and watch all these like movies on TV, like Showgirls or Jerry Springer, and like see dancers on stage. And I've always been very attracted to it. It seemed
What
very,
was appealing about it to you? Like, what was it that, made your mind excited about the idea of performing?
I mean, of course, in TV and stuff, things can be very glamorized. That's
Right.
not what the industry is all about, but there can be a lot of that. And so it did look really glamorous, but you get on a very superficial level, like getting really dressed up,
Hmm.
getting to look really, really cute, walk around in really cute outfits,
Hmm.
dancing on stage. That's what I love to do. But then when you get a little more into it and having experience in the industry now, it looked very empowering to me
Okay.
because my experience is when I'm in the club and I get to decide who I speak to, I get to decide where and how I make my money. So I saw that when I was younger, and it just really, it seemed like these really strong, sexy women that like harnessed their power.
Right.
And
Their
it was always
sexuality.
yeah, and it was their power and a strength of theirs. And so that very much attracted me from a young age. And I think that's really shaped my personality, like my entire identity as an
Mm.
adult.
So along the lines of like your apparel line and things like that, I know that you have quite a few other performers that you work with or around that are also artists of some sort.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like what other kinds of things or what other art forms people are
So
expressing?
I lived in London for a little bit, and
Mhm.
before I moved out there, I kind of started to network with the community out there, and it was very easy to find because London is huge. Obviously, San Diego is very small and it's very conservative. So when I went to London, it was huge, and there was an
Really?
actual community of sex workers, and they would meet weekly, and there was agendas of things they wanted to do, whether it was marches or
Okay.
one woman was a journalist, constantly writing. She just came out with a book.
Okay.
Another person I met was she was an actress, and she wrote a play called "Fuck You, Pay Me," and they brought me along to help like co-produce in a small way,
Mhm.
and then I ended up doing a stand-up skit about my sex work history.
Mhm.
And then there was also people that were other performers that did like a drag performance and it was just really cool. There was just such a huge spectrum of people that all identified as sex workers, but had these really huge, full lives. And it really, really inspired me. So when I came back to San Diego, I asked them if I could bring back some of what I learned from them, bring it here. Specifically, one event they called it Life Drawing with the East London Stripper Collective. So I specifically asked them because it wasn't my idea, and they allowed me to bring it here. So
And
it's
that's one of
like
the things not to cut you off, is one of the things I actually, when I went to your Hard Lovin', at Hard Lovin', if you're going to Instagram, make sure that you check it out. But that's one of the things I was like, I love that idea. I loved the live drawings of dancers and stuff. It's so beautiful. I love that idea. And I think that's amazing that you brought it back.
Right.
It's really cool because San Diego is a completely different vibe. It's so conservative. And so when I was a model for the East London one, it was people that were already used to the idea of it. It wasn't like this groundbreaking thing for them. It was very normal because it's a very metropolis city.
Right.
Here, where it's kind of like a little town, it was like,
Very
oh
San
wow,
Francisco. Right.
whoa, that's so interesting. And it was really cool. It was a majority of young university art students, which was really cool. But I got really great feedback from them saying they wanted to do more of it. And then it was also really cool because the dancers that I had be the models, the feedback I got from them was really beautiful. They said, I've never felt so beautiful before. I've never considered myself art. And so it's really cool to have kind of both sides have this moment of like, oh, this is different. This is cool. And so I really, really enjoyed that part of that, of starting that event here.
Now, if people want to find your apparel, is there a link that you'll be able to give us and post so that they can purchase your apparel and help with what you're doing and make sure that they're part of advocating as well?
Yeah, so right now I just have the Instagram. I've been working on the website for like 2 years, but I've had a lot of changes.
Been there.
Life is busy.
Yeah, I've had a lot of life changes, so I've had to unfortunately keep kind of pushing this. I don't want to call it a project because it's more than a project to me. Like, you know, I want this to be my life work. Yeah. And so in this next week or two, I will actually have the website up. I'm doing some pictures and stuff right now for it. So I will have the website hardlovin.com in like maybe in a week and a half.
Okay. I have a question real quick about, so when you say that you grew up Mormon and then you decided to go into the adult entertainment industry, how did growing up Mormon and then having that switch into the adult, because I know that Mormons are considered very reserved and conservative, like what was the first reaction that you got? And how did that, was it in your mentality that you were that you were breaking some sort of rule or going against God or any of that stuff?
I don't know. I honestly, when in high school, you have to go to church every single day. So you go on Sunday and then you go for an hour every day before school. And then Wednesday nights you go to an activity, and Saturdays there's a dance or something. So I'm at church a lot. And I think we were very much conditioned to go to church.
Yeah.
I know I like kind of believed it, but kind of didn't. In my experience there with the other people, I did get a lot of racism and a lot of like, oh, she must be a whore type thing. When in high school, I was actually very, very conservative. Like I wouldn't even say the F word. Like I was actually very conservative. So when I was 18, I actually moved to Salt Lake City to see if it was for me, because this has been the only thing that I knew. And within a day or two, I knew it wasn't. And then I immediately tried to get a job as a stripper in Utah. Cause it was just like, it was very normal for me to want to do these things. It wasn't a huge change for me. It felt like a big relief when I left.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, it did feel like, yeah, that wasn't for me. Now let me live
authentic.
Right.
Now let me be me. Yeah, let me be authentic. Yeah. I will say the day that I left the Mormon church, I went and bought my very first pack of cigarettes. I smoked a pack of cigarettes that day because I was like, yeah, that wasn't me. I really just like shrugged it off and then really
sure. Yeah, so you're like, because you're conditioned to be told that this is not acceptable, you can't do this. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot just listening to other people that have expressed, the leaving of the Mormon church and things. And really, I have whatever their choices are, whatever you
Yeah,
want to,
yeah, it's fine.
yeah,
You should have one.
but
Yeah.
I always wondered when you go from one extreme to the other, like what kind of obstacles you face, because
It's a big leap.
it is a big
It's
leap.
a big leap.
So I left the church when I was 18. I actually didn't start dancing until I was 22. I guess there was like 4-year gap there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you got a little bit of world life experience.
Kind of finding
Yeah.
yourself,
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did a
taking
lot
the
of
time out.
experiencing at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done any like formal training, like when you were a kid or anything? Any dance classes?
Yeah, I did a
So,
lot of dancing when I was
drama.
younger.
Okay.
Yeah, I did theater and drama. I'm a Leo, so performing is very, it comes very easily to me, or I'm very drawn to it. So yeah, I did a lot of that. And in high school, I taught some dance with my best friend. We did like ballet and modern and contemporary and some
Right.
tap here and there. And then as I got older, I did more like cultural dancing, like belly dancing and Afro-Cuban dancing and salsa and merengue. So I've always been in this space.
Right.
Just found a way to be able to do it professionally.
Exactly.
And now that you're back living with your family who's still in the Mormon church, how do you close that gap? Like your life to that life, and still feel like, do you still feel like you're still being you, or do you have to kind of like one foot in,
No,
one foot out?
I feel like I can still be me. My life has definitely changed now. I have a daughter. I live with my parents again. So before, working at the club was a lot more of a party. Now
Right.
it definitely is. I mean, it was a party, but I was still working. I've always been a hard worker. Now it's changed a bit more. So it's really now like I go down there to do a job and I come right back.
Right.
So I don't really talk or speak openly too much about what I do here. If anything, I kind of just tell my mom sometimes, like, oh, I make this much money. So she keeps it in her head, like, okay, there's a reason why I'm supporting her there. But other than that, I don't speak too much about it. But like on the internet, like on social media and stuff, I still very much openly speak about it and am supportive to other people in my industry as well.
Absolutely.
I always find it very interesting how whenever you're in a non-traditional environment or non-traditional profession, how like usually the woman is the one that gets vilified, and then like the patrons kind of skate by, and even the patrons themselves in terms of putting down the performers and putting down even say bartenders and servers. I mean, it goes across the board. People have this tendency to feel very elite about things. Have you had much experience with receiving negative feedback or rhetoric from people in the clubs, or like you said, maybe the girlfriends or something that come in, but people trying to make you look like the bad guy when the guy that pays for to come in just skates through?
My experience, not so much. I think I'm a firm believer in like the kind of customers you attract is based on your energy you give out. So my energy in the club has always been very much like a friend vibe. It's just not my vibe to like create a character and be like overly sexual or anything like that. That's not what I do at all. I come off more on a friend vibe. So
do you find that harder in certain clubs? Because I mean, having gone to lots of different establishments throughout my life, there are some that definitely have a more high class vibe where people aren't as
where they have to wear gowns, and then you have others where they're
or where the patrons are just better trained. Or even in my own experience with working in the service industry, bartending in a dive bar, it's very different than a high scale cocktail lounge.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Do you find that to be different, or is it just that you're centering yourself and you're creating the energy of your own personal environment?
I think my experience would be that what you said. I've kind of created my own experience. I could totally see how that can be other people's experience. I just do what's natural to me, which is really authentic. And I'm the same person I am at the club as who I am when you see me at the gym or whatever it is. I'm pretty much the same person. So when people go and they see me there, I'm more like there to have a good time. People know, oh, she's always having fun. I always get the same feedback that you're looking like you're having so much fun on stage. Like you
Right.
look like
That's
you
what I wanna
genuinely
hear.
really
Yeah.
want to be here. You're
Right.
actually enjoying this. So I attract people in that way. So I actually haven't had too much negative feedback or have had to deal with that personally
hmm
in the
Now,
club. But I do know that does happen a lot. I do,
Right.
you know, that's the
here,
nature of
here's an
industry.
interesting question too. Not again, it's hard because of the way the audio is. I don't mean to cut you off. It just
Oh, no,
happens
you're
to.
fine.
My question is, so sex trafficking is at like an all-time high. Have you witnessed people being trafficked in, because it tends to happen, especially a lot here in Florida, where we're actually one of the highest areas of sex trafficking based on the water and highway accessibility. But I've always been curious because I've heard stories of people being forced into the industry through trafficking. And have you ever witnessed that at all in your history?
I think I've been very naive to some things. Our club is really small. It's small, it's local. We really know most of the people that come in a lot. Most of the people are just like industry people, party goers.
hmm
But so I may be very naive to some stuff. I just don't notice it. But I do remember one time I was very specific. I could see there was a pimp and one of his girls, and it didn't look like a good situation. All they did was sit and like hang out at the bar, but it was very obvious the dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
But in regards to the other thing, I know San Diego does have a high human trafficking.
Well, you guys
I
have
guess,
some of those similar accesses.
yeah, because we have similar accesses, and
Ways.
then during like Comic-Con, I know that that's a huge time here.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to talk more about it just because I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other dancers that I work with that
I was just
would know
curious.
things
Yeah, if
or
you'd
know
ever seen something like outright obvious, and especially being an advocate of sex working, if you were to ever encounter a situation like that, is there like a protocol? If you were to see something that you perceived as maybe unhealthy or
Girl in distress.
a girl in distress, what would you do in that situation?
That's a good question. I guess that obviously would definitely depend the situation. I would think that I would intervene or check up on I would think a woman in this example, check up on her in a sly way. I've actually never really thought about that. I don't think that's been a huge thing I've had to be aware of in our club. It's been my home club for about a decade, and I've mostly worked
Yeah.
there.
Sure.
So I don't think I've really experienced that situation before.
Yeah.
So I really
It
wouldn't
just
know.
it kind of dawned on me, that question, because like sometimes, like you say, like you really want to be there, and so the
Mhm.
energy you're putting off is I really want to be there.
Right.
And like you said, it may be a little naive to anything else because you're focused on the energy that you're producing, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting, like
Yeah, to see to notice that a girl might not really want to be there.
yeah,
is
I don't know.
because-
And because of you're doing some serious advocacy work, I think it's
Mhm.
like amazing. It kind of ties into a lot of that stuff. But I want to get focused also. I love that you do other events. Like I know that you just taught a class, right? A dancing class, or
Yeah,
was
I just got asked to teach a sexy dance class for moms.
Oh,
So I
that's
just
a
did
great
the
idea.
Yeah, it was
do
really
the
cute.
kids
My
get to
daughter, they did it for the kids outside. So they were all moms and they all
Yeah.
had like 1, 2, 3 kids. And so it was nice. I was a little nervous because I haven't taught
Mhm.
over a decade. And so it was really fun. And one of the moms came up to me afterwards and she was like, can you at least try and do this once a month? It was really
Right.
nice to feel sexy and remember that I can be sexy. And
Yeah.
another lady goes, oh, so where should my husband sit? Like, where's
I like
what's
that.
the best direction for him to sit? And
Yeah.
that was just really cool to be like an avenue for somebody
Mhm.
to feel something. Because I was, a bit of like imposter syndrome sometimes, I haven't taught in so long. Do they want to know my choreography? Is this dumb or
Right.
whatever?
Right.
It was validated and it was really fun. So they asked me to come back. So I'm definitely gonna do it again.
Yeah, that's actually become pretty popular. We have a couple of like polar size and pole dancing
Oh yeah.
venues that have opened up over here recently, and a lot of moms. I mean, it's just really nice when women get to reclaim their sexuality after having children. And
I know when I was dancing, I was in the best shape of my life.
And pole work is no joke. I mean,
yeah. So I was
no joke.
actually thinking about this the other night too. So I think the women that I was in class with, I think even pole work going to a pole class might even be like a really big step.
Right.
So I was thinking, I told them to bring heels, even though it was all floor work, and I brought out my pleasers because I'm loyal to my life. And I told them I'm a stripper. That this is what I'm teaching you. We did some leg waves to teach them and stuff.
Right.
And I was like, oh, how cool would it be if I did like a dance class series and it was called A Stripper Taught Me, and we teach them like some basic stripper moves, like the leg wave or something, because pole could be really intimidating. Like I'm not a pole dancer, even though
a lot of times it takes so much upper body strength, and a lot of us over time, we get into our lives and we want to work out, but then it might be a little like discouraging if you get to the pole class and you're like, I can't even, it's not like some people sometimes in their mind, they're like, oh, I could totally do that. And then you realize just how hard it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's even me. I've taken pole classes and I'm like, I have no fucking way. because San Diego's so conservative, like I don't think those moms would have ever really signed up for a pole class.
Right.
I think having like a little buffer in between. When I told them I was a stripper, they're like, oh, that's so cool. And they instantly felt sexier. It was a little taboo. Right. So I was thinking about maybe offering like a Stripper Taught Me and have other dancers come in and show them their different types of energies when they dance without needing a pole. So yeah.
I like that idea.
Well, you had said that you had a child and then you just did a class for moms getting back, trying to feel better about themselves. Was that a hard transition for you, going from the adult entertainment? And then did you at any point lose your mojo?
When I became a mom? I had just moved back. Yeah, definitely. I went through really difficult postpartum depression, and anxiety was really rough. And then it came to like after she was about a year, financially, I was like, it's my turn to make some money. And so, and I really missed it, honestly, because I hadn't danced for 2 years at that point. And so I went back. I pushed myself back into the club. I was working like 5 days a week, and it took me a minute. I felt like a Bambi, like a little baby deer on stage.
Right.
And I realized like how much time I had been away from the club. So it took me a little bit to get my body moving in that same flow.
Yeah.
It was a bit hard. I was comparing myself a lot to the other dancers, and then I kind of got a grasp on that, and I was like, I'm fine. I'm on my journey. Like, I don't need to be this or this.
Right.
I'm great where I am. So it did take me a little bit.
You think more, do you think regardless of whether or not they're doing it for their spouse or they want to get back into dancing, do you think that it's a good avenue for women to have these sexy classes?
Oh yeah. Duh. It's a great expression. And I think it's a great way to feel grounded and like really in touch within. And I live life very dissociative a lot of the time, so I'm constantly trying to bring myself like grounding and back into my body. And dance has always been a really big thing for me, so that's why I've always really fought for my job.
Right.
And even in my head, like maybe I shouldn't do it anymore or anything, but I always bring myself back to that. I feel the happiest when I do it because I feel in my body. And I only really feel that when I'm in movement. And so I do think it's great that I can do a job and do that at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that happens a lot with many women is you get tied up into working all the time, and
we lose ourselves.
Losing, not just working, but then your
family, your partner, your children.
You get pulled in so many directions that you lose sight of what was the thing. Like a lot of, because in my work, I deal with a lot of couples, right? And they lose themselves, and it's bringing them back to, well, what was attractive to you about this person
In the first place,
in the
yeah.
first place, right?
Mhm.
And I think, like you just said, grounding yourself and loving who you are, your full sexual self, and
Right.
it changes the light you see yourself in, for sure. And I think it's awesome that you're doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, moms often, you know, they always talk about that Madonna horror complex and how women
Ugh.
just kind of lose their mojo, and guys look at their spouses like, oh, she's just a mom now, when part of who we are is really tied up into our whole femininity and our sexual
Mhm.
essence, you know,
Yeah.
especially as we get older.
Yeah, and women are like, we've had the age is just a number.
Mhm.
We get like to a point where people just, they start discarding
Yep.
older. As we get older as women, they're like, well, she's older, and they devalue our sexuality.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Mhm.
awesome that you're doing something like this to encourage people to continue to embrace their full femininity.
Yes, it's very empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get a lot out of it as well too.
Mhm.
So it's just great to um just like give back in this way, because
Mhm.
there've been times where I've needed it myself and I've got that back from somebody else. So
Yeah.
it kind of
Right.
You just never
nice
know.
circle of energy of just like supporting each other.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing that even Yaz and I are trying to do with our show is it's supporting other women.
Right.
We're not competing against each other. We're here to embrace and support one another.
Uplift and
Yeah.
help each other advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like when we do that, we actually do advance further in life than trying to hold each other back.
Mhm.
I
I
think
agree.
that's one of the big things that I've also really taken from stripping, because I've had the privilege of being at the same club for so long. I've built the sisterhood that we have there. I know specifically this club has been described as having like a big family vibe
Right.
of
I love that.
dancers.
Mhm.
And so we're so supportive. They have seen me through so many phases of my life
Right.
before I got married, when I got married, and then I got pregnant, and now I'm going through a divorce. Like, they've seen me through
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And the support that how many times they have held my hair, I'm crying in the back, I am drunk or whatever it is, and then seeing me on stage and they're supporting and yelling for me and like, it's this huge support. And it's an incredible sisterhood that I have discovered in these spaces, because it's a sisterhood of people that we live the same kind of lifestyle, and we have to deal with the same kind of criticism and
Right.
stereotypes. So we have this thicker skin on top of that. And
Mhm.
on top of that, this other level of empathy.
Mhm.
And so it's a really beautiful kind of person that I have met in this industry. So it's also another reason why I just absolutely love my job.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I love it. I am my sister's keeper. That's what
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
reminds me of, that phrase,
Nice.
Girl power all day.
Did you have
Yeah.
anything else that you wanted to
No, you
ask?
pretty much hit on.
Is
all
there
things.
anything else that you wanted to like add before the time runs out here? Or add, I meant to say.
I don't know. I think this has been a really great conversation. It's just really fun to,
Yes.
talk to other femmes about this, our work that we do. We're
Yeah.
not really able to talk about these
Yeah.
things in regular life. And I always
Yeah.
say regular life because that's what it is. I can't
Yeah.
have this conversation
Well, I
with
think too,
with
education is everything.
civilians is what I like to call
Absolutely.
people. So it's really nice to just have like-minded people around where we can
Right.
just be us.
Mm-hmm. And education is everything. I think often in order to break down barriers, you have to be willing to educate people and re-inform them on, misconceptions, because there are a lot of misconceptions in the world. And a lot of times our fear is based in not knowing.
No, exactly.
So,
Yeah, I agree with
Those
you on that.
stereotypes.
yeah.
I think educating and finding lighter and kind of fun ways of educating is a way faster way to like get into somebody's head.
Right.
And there's
Then
always going to be people who you cannot change their
Mhm.
mentality, but for the one that does,
Especially those people that always just think that, even no matter what you're doing, if you're in a service industry, if you're a bartender, if you're a server, if you're a dancer, if
Oh, yeah.
you're doing anything like that, they're like, oh, that's because you have to, because you don't have any other skill. And then most of the time, most of us hold degrees. And just like your t-shirt said, I make more money than you, Paul. Like, you know,
because I like
it's-
what I'm doing.
exactly. There's a whole nother element and to
quite
it.
frankly, a lot of
You
people
get to have an alter ego. You get to
Yes.
go and
Mhm.
perform. You do something acrobatic and aerobic. I mean, there's so many socializing.
There's signal
Then you get
yeah.
to be with your sisters. You get to have a
Mhm.
good time and you get to make a living doing
and
it.
I honestly believe not everyone is equipped to be
No,
the same way. Not everybody learns the same way. I don't feel like everyone's meant to be a 9 to 5er behind
Nope.
a desk.
how
I
boring
know,
would that be?
I know that's my
How
biggest
boring
issue.
would that be?
I need to be able to move. I need the freedom, and that's
We need
another
a little
reason.
variety in this diet.
Yeah.